Hey, we're at Baltimore Comic Con 2017. I'm with Eryk Donovan talking Eugenics, a new series coming out from Boom Studios. Now, I know the series is part of like a trilogy that you're doing with James.
Yep.
You know, when you were coming up with all of it, was it originally set as a trilogy, or did it kind of evolve over time?
So yeah, James had originally conceived idea of a numerous different kind of apocalypse stories that he wanted to tell, and I think he can probably expound on that a little bit more. But I know Mimetic was the most fleshed out one, but we had kind of ideas for what Eugenic and Cognetic might be when we first started that. And then Mimetic, people enjoyed it, and Boom wanted to make the second and third with us. So we had that chance to flesh those out and make them into what they are now.
So Eugenics, I had a chance to read it. It's really trippy and not what I expected at all. Like, there's a twist to it that's really good. And I read kind of the back material, and I imagine this is going to go up before the issue comes out. So we'll get some questions out that you might cover there. But with like the design of the characters, you really have like an infinite palette to play with.
Absolutely.
With for you as an artist and creator, how do you kind of like rein that in, keep it consistent? Obviously you got to sit there and be like, oh, I can really do anything.
Yeah. That actually definitely was a challenge, coming up with the concept of it, of what these characters would look like. And I think the biggest thing for me in keeping them consistent in a way was that most of what we see that's going to be contorted or messed up a lot of the time has more to do with facial and head type features rather than full body. I mean, there will be situations where we'll probably see more of them, and there is still going to be like a very disturbing element to what their whole bone structure or something might look like. But in keeping it mostly with the head and still giving them a very humanoid type of appearance, and sticking with that, it helps them stay very consistent, even if all of those features are wildly different between different ones. And yeah, definitely originally when I was conceptualizing these and drawing in my sketchbook, I have all kinds of, maybe what if they had like bird legs or other weird things that I decided not to go with, obviously. But at the time, just like kind of thinking about what something might be but it also became almost too alien in that way that it didn't read as a sort of, other version of humanity. And so that's ultimately why I decided to definitely move away from that and more in the direction that we are now.
With the series, though, like I just kind of wanted to ask you about that. Is that it's hard to talk about it because I don't want to give too much away. So part of it is like these new humans, creatures are being born, and obviously parents have to deal with it. And I found that really interesting. That first issue is that you could still see the parents kind of imprinting and kind of loving their kids, even though the kids looked really different. With your creation, I mean, that has to be part of it. Because as you said, like if it's too alien, too foreign, we're not going to quite connect it with readers.
Right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely something that I think gives it an extra power. I was even talking with a buddy of mine last night, and he was like, I don't know if you're messing with, there's kids in this one, like that can get really weird, man. And I totally understand that. But it's also that element of, if this was my kid, I probably would still love my child, and we see that in our world. Even with different kinds of things that might happen with kids now. So it's like, of course, as a parent, you're going to love your child. You're not going to care. You might care for them in the sense that you realize their life is going to be different because of something that they have going on with them, but you're still going to love your kid just as much. And so there's definitely like, you can connect to that immediately and know like, yeah, that's exactly what would happen,
With the actual character designs, and reading that back material, seems like there was a lot of like logic you were thinking through of what they might look like and kind of what this evolution and next step is. What was kind of the process going through that?
I mean, a lot of it was sketching. A lot of it was back and forth with James and Jasmine and Eryk, my editors on the book.
Did you do like research as to what people might think of like the next evolutionary step might be type of stuff?
Some to an extent. Most of it, though, if you look at the characters, they really don't have, as much as I based it in kind of a logical type of extrapolation, the final appearance and look of it is something that is highly illogical, that only would really work in a comic book or a sci-fi movie. I even remember, a friend of mine looked at one of the drawings. She's like, that head wouldn't work. Like, bones don't work that way. And I'm like, I totally understand, and you're right. But that's the beauty of the fact that it's a comic book, is it doesn't matter whether it would actually work like that in real life or not, because it's a drawing. And so I'm able to do really cool, creepy things with that drawing that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So that was a really fun, even though I have a very kind of logical approach to a lot of that stuff. But I can then take it, because it's a drawing, because it's a piece of art, and kind of make it into its own thing.
So the series is interesting in that, so there's the twist in that first issue, and it seems like, I haven't read the second issue. The second issue seems like it's kind of taking it in the next, the next step, like it's going to skip whatever number of years or whatever, 200, yeah. So, with that first issue, it's interesting is that it kind of touches on a lot of, actual real world issues, debates that are going on. Was that things you kind of talked about with James and the creative team coming out with it?
Absolutely. However, most of these ideas were in place long before kind of the current political climate that we've been living in the past couple of years have been around. I mean, this was conceptualized 5+ years ago or more, and I even remember 2 or 3 years ago having some early conversations about what Eugenic was going to look like while we were making Cognetic. So while definitely this is a product of our time, and we're very aware and cognizant of those things that are going on, and we are touching on and dealing with those things, and it definitely has shaped it, I think that it speaks to the strength of the idea, that almost like we're dealing with a lot of this stuff now, but we didn't come up with the idea as a reaction, as more kind of, it feels oddly prescient to me in a way, which is kind of scary too. Like we're like, here we are coming out. This is when we've been planning to do this book for like 2+ years now, and it's coming out during this time. So that definitely has been really interesting.
So with the series, it's you've got kind of this main character that sets all this emotion,
right,
who then gets, well, I'm not only going to say it, I don't want to ruin it. I just stopped myself on that. Things happen, and then you kind of go with like a whole another direction in the second issue going forward. Right. For like as you as an artist, how does it feel? Because obviously the second issue you said is 200 years in the future, but it still has to connect in some way as far as style and all that. And even the first issue is what, 2097 or 57 or something like that, or
it might even be 37, but it's still far enough ahead from where we are that. You buy that things are different and things have been changing and moving, but it's also still close enough to the world that we live in now that it still feels familiar. What we're going to see in the next chapter is going to feel much, much less familiar from what we know. There will still be a structure to it that we'll be able to look at and connect with and understand. And even past that, when we get to 3, I think 3 is going to feel much, much more alien than 2 will. So it's interesting doing a story where you're not following one specific character throughout the entire story. We're following, honestly, more of a species throughout a story of the species. And so that's a really interesting thing to approach, I think. I would suspect for James, definitely, as the scriptwriter and, coming up with it as his concept of how do I do this? And then for me as an artist, I had that challenge of, okay, every time I'm going to be drawing new characters for each chapter. How do they fit? How do they feel like they connect? And one thing that with this one that's nice is because we have these Newmans, they're actually in a way kind of their own main characters. So we're following them through just as much as we may with these other characters who may have more speaking parts. They're always there kind of as a core part of this story. So they're definitely a thread that will be tying everything together.
So I, obviously haven't seen future issues, just seen the first one. With the Newmans that are going to be coming out, like, how long does it take you to design all of them? And I mean, I would imagine that there's going to be some in the background that aren't necessarily main characters. Like, for you as a creator, like, how much time are you putting into kind of really thinking through each of them?
It really honestly comes down more to what that particular scenario needs. And so once I had that original core concept stuff down of like what the Newmans will be and what they'll look like, it enables me to kind of just come up with stuff immediately based on essentially the building blocks that I have there already. So there are certain ones that we'll definitely be seeing more frequently than others. But it's nice because I can figure out like, it's like almost a contrast thing. Like if I have one that looks one way in a scene, I'll probably want one that looks different than that one in that same scene. So if I'm drawing multiple of them, it's almost like a domino effect of like, well, this one looks like this, so this one's going to look like this, and this one will look like that, which is really fun for me as an artist, where I'm just like drawing all these, creepy, crazy things. But as far as putting a lot of, pre-thought into each individual one, that will happen. That has happened more with the ones that are very specific characters that we're following rather than the background ones. That was more that original concept phase of putting those building blocks in place so that I can move them all around later.
You've worked with James before.
Yep.
So getting to this series, like how has kind of the working relationship shifted over the years?
We've definitely, it's become much more intuitive. Yeah. With this one, we're actually doing what essentially a plot first type scripting. James typically likes to break everything down panel by panel, page by page, and there is still some of that here for sure. But we've been finding ways, especially since this is, I think, our 5th or so project together, maybe 6. Yeah, but like because of that, it allows us to have that kind of, we know kind of how the other one is thinking, or how I might draw something he's writing, or inversely I might interpret what he's writing. So it allows more freedom in the way that he's writing the scripts. So he's setting the stage, setting the scenarios, what's happening in them, and I'm spending a lot more of time on individual beats, how that's breaking down into a comic page. And again, there are definitely places where he's like, I really think this is how I want it to look. But there's a lot more trust as far as him like knowing I'm going to do my thing and make this awesome, and not worrying about the minutia of what that might look like.
Final question. I don't want to take too much of your time.
No, absolutely.
Is there so far than something, because it's a trippy book. Like it starts off as this like sci-fi thing, and then there's that twist, and you're like, okay, working on it so far, is there anything that like really stands out to you of like, I can't believe I was able to do that, or I wish I could have done that, but I just didn't think it would like fly?
I will say, well, there's a lot more body horror in this book, like direct physical body horror, than we had in Mimetic and Cognetic, even though we did have some violent scenes in that. And there were definitely some places where my editors were like, you gotta rein it in a little bit, buddy. Like this is more graphic than what we want to show, and that's fine. But as far as something that just like, I can't believe I get to do this, actually the second chapter, when I got the script for that, I like got chills, just like, oh, this is gonna be so exciting. This is totally like all the things I kind of love in one place. So it made me, and it's really exciting when you get to work on a book like that, that's your book and it's a thing that you love already, and you still get that moment of almost like surprising yourself. So hopefully everyone else will enjoy that chapter as much as I do, but there is a heart in that chapter that I think is going to really catch people off guard, especially not really knowing what to expect of how this book's going to be structured, since it's taking place over such a long period of time. So
cool. Well, I appreciate you talking.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.